So, in as much as you are refreshing at home and in as much as you are enjoying life outside of the gates of school, you still have to remember that very soon you will be sitting for your final examinations and you're supposed to produce results. So I'm here to reignite the mindset that you are not supposed to be complacent, you are not supposed to forget about your ultimate goal of getting A's and A stars at the end of the year. So today we are going to start our online lessons, and for geography we are going to start with coastal processes and landforms. It's a topic that we've been looking at when we were still here, when you were still here before we closed. That was the last topic that we were looking at, and I want us to actually revise on whatever we did during the course of the term, have a revisit of all the areas, making sure that those who might have struggled with a particular topic or with a particular concept within this area of coastal process and landforms would actually then pick up from there and also benefit. Make sure that there's no one who is also actually left behind. So take your notebooks, your tablets, your phones, your laptops, and everything that you need for these online lessons, and let's start to work and make sure that we benefit and benefit largely. So as I said, we are looking at coastal processes and coastal landforms, and we are going to start with the definition of key terms. Today we are just going to be looking at the definition of key terms, the key terms that we use when we are talking of coastal processes and landforms. Some of these key terms are actually similar to the terms that we used when we were looking at rivers, river processes and landforms. So what is now different is that we are now applying it to coastal process, which is the processes that are associated with the coastlines and the seas. So you are going to be seeing the same terms that you were seeing when we were looking at rivers and river processes and landforms. So it's something that should actually be a positive on your side, because it is now just a matter of you applying the new concept that you learned before to the new topic, which is coastal processes and landforms. So the first term that we are going to look at is erosion. Erosion is a term that you are used to. It's a term that you've been taught by teachers from as early as your grade 1. And it is a term that you continue to hear until the end of time. It is a term that should always when you are asked by anyone about its meaning, it should be ready at your fingertips. Its meaning doesn't change, regardless of where we are applying it. It is just now a matter of applying the meaning or the definition that you were taught by your grade 1 teacher or by your grade 7 teacher or by your form 1 teacher to the new that you'll be looking at that particular time. And in this case, we are saying erosion is the process by which the land is worn away by natural forces such as wind, water, and ice. So when we are looking at the coastlines, the sea now becomes the primary agent of erosion, gradually wearing down the cliffs, the rocks, and the beaches. So we are just looking at the ocean being the agent of erosion in this case. The ocean being a relentless sculptor, using its waves as chisels to curve and shape the land over time, wearing down the land over time. And when we're looking at coast, we're just talking about the land that we find, a situation where the land meets the sea. That is what we call the coastline, the place where the land meets the sea. So all the processes that result in the wearing down of that land as a result of wave action or processes by the ocean falls under what we call erosion. And I hope you understand this. And we have about 4 types of erosion, the same types of erosion that we did when we were looking at river erosion. The first type is hydraulic action. When we are looking at hydraulic action, we are talking about the force of water cracking and breaking into rocks. So water would be moving into cracks and rock crevices on the coastlines. So as it moves, the pressure will result in the breakages or in the explosions on rocks, resulting in the rocks dismantling and breaking down as a result of that pressure. The force of water itself cracking and breaking rocks. So what you just need to do is to visualize the sheer power of waves crashing into cliffs, forcing air into cracks and causing pieces of rock to actually break off. So that's the first type of erosion that we have, which is hydraulic action. And the second type that we have is abrasion. So when we're looking at abrasion, we are just talking about the load that is being carried by the ocean, be it sand, be it pebbles, or whatever that is being carried by the ocean, coming into contact with the seabed or the coastline, and then eroding the coastline. So it is the load that is eroding. Whatever that is being carried is what is eroding the coastline. And that process is abrasion. Then the third one is attrition, where we are now looking at the rocks and the pebbles or whatever that is being carried by the ocean, smashing into each other and breaking into smaller, smoother pieces, which eventually forms sand. So the difference between abrasion and attrition is that for abrasion, it is the load that is eroding the coastline. Then for attrition, it is the load smashing into each other. So the load is eroding each other, right? The load, whatever that is being carried, is smashing and crashing into each other, resulting in it breaking down into smaller pieces. And the last erosion process that we have is solution. By nature, the ocean is slightly acidic, and it can dissolve certain types of rock materials. For example, limestone over time is different reactions between those rocks and the components that we have in water that will be acidic, right? So bit by bit, those rocks will be dissolved by the sea, thereby wearing down as a result of this process. So these are the 4 types of erosion that we have, and I hope you understood each one of them. Now, let's look at deposition as another key term. When we are looking at deposition, deposition is the process whereby material that is being carried by the sea is dropped or settles down as the water loses its energy, or as the water slows down So when we have erosion as being the nature's way of tearing things down, we now look at deposition as nature's way of building new landforms. Sorry. The sea, after eroding and transporting rocks and sediments, it then deposits them in calmer areas, creating new beaches, spits, and dunes. So what we have is a situation where the ocean is actually tidying itself up and leaving behind some little gifts of sand and pebbles. So that's deposition. If you have any question, you can also feel free to ask. Good morning, everyone. Morning, boys and girls, and I hope you are having a very wonderful holiday wherever you are. Those who are having their holidays in Zimbabwe, those who are having their holidays outside Zimbabwe, those who are having their holidays in the right. The third key term that we have to look at is transportation. And by transportation, we are talking about the movement of eroded material along the coastline by the sea. So the material that would have been eroded would then be transported from one place to another by the waves and the sea, and it will then be deposited at those other places. So we are just having the ocean being a giant conveyor belt, picking up sediment from one place and dropping it somewhere else. And this process that we are talking about, which is the process of transportation, is actually very important and crucial for shaping coastlines, because it determines where we have sand, where we have pebbles, and where we have rocks being deposited. And this then leads to the formation of various landforms. Right. The last term that, before we look at the last term, we have different types of transportation, about 4. And the first type that we have is what we call traction. Traction, we are looking at large boulders and rocks being rolled along the seabed by the force of water. That is what we call traction. Then the second one is saltation, where we have smaller pebbles bouncing along the seabed in a hopping motion. That is what we call saltation. They are bouncing in a hopping motion. Then the third one is suspension, where we have fine material like silt and clay being carried within water, making it to look cloudy. That is what we call suspension, which is the material is being suspended. Then the last one is solution, where those minerals that would have been dissolved in the water by the process of solution in erosion would then be carried as dissolved material by the sea from one point to another. So these are the 4 types of transportation that we have, and we're going to be looking into them in detail alongside the longshore drift as we progress with the topic. Then the last term that we have to look into is just coastal landforms. I think you now know what we mean by landforms. So in terms of coastal landforms, we are talking about the physical features found along the coast, created by the interactions of erosion, transportation, and deposition. So these landforms actually are the fingerprints of the ocean. Each one tells us a unique story of how it was shaped by the sea over time. From towering cliffs to gentle sand dunes, every coastal landform is a result of the never-ending battle between the sea and the land. So these are the key terms that we are going to be working on, and of course more terms are going to come. We are going to be meeting more terms as we progress. The names of the landforms, the names of different processes, and a lot of others. But these are the key terms that covers almost everything. All the other terms that will then come will be falling under these key terms. So thank you for taking time to attend this lesson. If you have any question on any of these terms that we have looked into, please feel free to ask your question, and make sure that all the work that I'm going to be sending, you also make sure that you submit it in time, mark, and assist each other. There is no rest. No one is going to rest until we get the ultimate prize. That's very important. So I'm not going to let you rest. I'm not. Thank you.
Coastal erosion is the wearing away of rocks by the sea, often due to destructive waves. There are 4 main types of erosion. Hydraulic action is caused by the power of the waves. Air is forced into cracks in the rocks, and when the wave retreats, this air rushes out, largening cracks and causing the rocks to break apart. Abrasion, also known as corrosion, is where rocks are picked up by the waves and held at the cliffs. Attrition is where rocks being carried by the sea are knocked against each other, becoming smaller and rounder over time. And solution is where seawater dissolves certain types of rocks, such as chalk or limestone. This links into transportation, which is the movement of beach material. Solution is when the minerals from dissolved rocks are carried in solution in the seawater. Suspension is where small particles are suspended in the flow of water. Saltation is where small pieces of sediment that are too heavy to be suspended are bounced along the seabed. And traction is where larger sediment that is too heavy to be picked up is rolled along the seabed. Longshore drift describes the movement of sediment along the coast by waves. The direction of the prevailing wind results in waves approaching the coast at an angle. The swash carries material up the beach at this angle, but the backwash flows back to the sea at right angles to the cliff. This results in a sawtooth pattern where sediment is carried along the coast in the prevailing wind direction. Deposition is when sediment material is dropped onto a beach, in other words, it is deposited. This happens when waves have low energy, known as constructive waves. Deposition usually happens in sheltered areas due to slower waves, shallower water and little or no wind.